All right, what is up, everybody? This is Alex once again with another episode of the EOT Newsflash. This is episode 118, Commander Purrrgatory. And of course, I am joined by my lovely co-host, Sam. How are you today?
I'm perfect.
God! This is the kind of content you come to expect from this channel. Really bad cat puns. Which are quite appropriate because we are deep in Ikoria and Commander 2020 previews, which are full of big scary cats. So, well played. Well played.
Could say it's going to be catastrophic.
It could be. This could just be horrible. An apocalypse. I promise you, we're not drunk or anything either. Nope. Yeah, so last week we looked at some of the new Ikoria mechanics. We looked at a couple of new cards, we looked at the trailer, and in the past couple of days we've had the full list of all the new Ikoria Commander 2020 cards revealed, all 71 of them. We are super hyped about it. We're both pretty avid Commander players, even within our own two-person group here in our quarantine, but when we're actually out in the real world, we play, we got a pretty good group that we play with on a regular basis. So what I thought what we want to do today is actually go through all 71 new cards. That's actually more than previous years because we have 5 brand new decks as opposed to 4, which has been sort of the norm for the past couple of years. I think there's like 17 new cards per deck, so there's a lot to cover. And then, of course, we've actually built a couple of decks using some of the new commanders as well. You will get no bonus points for guessing who Sam picked. So just on a scale from 1 to 10, how hyped are you for Commander 2020 and what it's going to bring to Commander?
1,000.
1,000%.
Super excited.
Super excited.
Cannot wait.
Yeah. So we're just going to dive right into it. We're going to take a look at the white cards and go through Purrrg order here, and then we'll show off the decks that we've crafted here, and yeah, we'll call it a night from there. But yeah, thanks so much for hanging out with us today, guys, and let's dive right into it. Our first white card is Avenging Hunt Bonder, 3 white human warrior, rare, 3/3 double strike. Whenever it attacks, you put a double strike counter on another target attacking creature. So this is a pretty aggressive threat. The body is kind of expensive, but for us basically dealing 6 damage and something else dealing double damage, it's pretty impressive as well. So what are your thoughts on this here?
I mean, it looks like it could be a heavy hitter if you need it to be. Not to mention if you have something extremely powerful in play and you give that creature double strike. I mean,
like a big scary cat.
Yeah, actually.
This might not be a hint or a preview. Yeah. Yeah, this is certainly not going to be lighting up the competitive EDH tables, but I think this is a pretty cool card for any human tribal deck or any deck that's a really combat centric. I think so. Pretty cool card, but nothing gonna, like I said, light the world on fire. Yeah. This next card, call the Coppercoats. So the Coppercoats are obviously one of the military factions within Ikoria that serve as sort of the police of this big glowy rock city. Don't know if that's true or not, but there we go. 2 and a white for an instant at rare. It has Strive, so this is a mechanic returning from Fate Reforged, which was the first visit to Theros, and allows you to choose multiple targets by paying an additional cost. So you pay 1 and a white to target 1 additional target beyond the first, and you can do it as many times as you can. So you choose any number of target opponents, create X11 white human soldier creature tokens, or X is the number of creatures that opponent controls. Instant army. It seems like. So you're paying 2, and then so if you have a full pod, you can pay an additional 6. So 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 mana to get potentially a massive amount of creatures, and an instant speed. So to do this on their instant is pretty impressive. So what are your thoughts on this card here?
I think it's definitely a very efficient card, and I mean,
even just 1-on-1.
Yeah.
Because I play Amara Soul of the Accord, my token deck that creates a ton of tokens, and I'm going to be putting this in there probably. But if you were to have this against me and cast this as I'm going to attacks, and you're just like, well, I'm going to make 1,000 tokens. Yeah. Pretty good stuff here. Pretty good stuff here indeed. This next card, however, this card is not very good. We were going through the spoilers, and Sam got to this and looked at it and went, this card is bad. She's not wrong either. This is Cartographer's Hawk, 1 white for a creature bird at rare, 2/1 flying, and when it deals combat damage to a player. I'm just going to hold up my fingers as I check off the criteria for this card to actually do anything. So when it deals combat damage to a player who controls more lands than you, you return it back to your hand, and if you do, you may search your library for a plains, put it on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library. That is a flaming hoop over shark-infested water into a pit with no net.
The sharks fly now.
Sharks do fly now. So one of the things that you've been kind of lamenting recently is that certain colors of Commander are not good at certain things, and white is terrible at ramp. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Still is.
Still is. And this card is not doing itself any favors at all. Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking here, honestly. It's not... Yeah, I'm just going to skip this card, actually. I don't like this at all. For Dismantling Wave is next. 2 white sorcery at rare. For each opponent, destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment that player controls. And you can cycle it for 6 white, discard it, and then draw a card. And when you cycle it, you destroy all artifacts and enchantments. So this is either surgical or just the big red nuke button.
Yeah.
I have a Tuvasa deck that I like to play a lot that's very enchantment heavy. You have your Sir Gwen deck that's full of equipments. So, personal feeling on this card, because I'm not a fan of it turned on me, at least.
It could be catastrophic.
Yeah? Catastrophic?
Catastrophic. Now it gets it. But, I mean, honestly, that looks like a really mean card, and it seems in this instance that the cycling has replaced Overload.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean... Yeah.
Yeah, this is the cost on the cycling is pretty pricey, I think. But as far as just 3 mana to take out a key, be it a Soul Ring, maybe something like an Ashnod's Altar or Helm of the Host, I think this is a pretty surgical tool, and this is probably going to find its way into a good number of white decks.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
For sure.
Yeah. Next up, we have Flawless Maneuver. Which is part of a cycle that you are allowed to cast as long as you control a commander. So 2 white instant rare. If you control a commander, you may cast this spell without paying its mana cost, and creatures you control gain indestructible until the end of turn. Now, Sam, what is the one thing you hate more than anything happening to your creatures in Commander?
Them dying.
Yeah, and I think this is a pretty... I mean, it's a very good way to get around that. Even just without your commander in play, this is a very cheap spell to get around that effect. Especially for a deck, kind of like the deck we'll be looking at that you've built here in just a little bit, or your Sir Gwen deck, to be able to... Because you constantly have your commander in play. Yeah. Sort of the key part of that. So to have a spell like this at your disposal, to supplement something like a Boros Charm, I think is pretty powerful here. I wish they could have just put Teferi's Protection back in these decks, but I think that was asking probably too much. But what are you going to do? So, yeah. Any other thoughts on the Flawless Maneuver?
Nope. I'm excited to use it.
And make me very, very sad when I cast my spells into it. But that's okay. Next up, we've got ourselves a couple more white cards here. There's about 10 cards per color here that we're going to go through here. Obviously, the gold cards are where the bulk of the new stuff is located. So this is Herald of the Forgotten. We have a 6 white cat beast. At rare, 6/6 flying. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, return any number of target permanent cards with cycling abilities from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, spoilers, I built a cycling deck for our demonstration here today, and as soon as I saw this, like it's far too expensive for what it does. 8 mana is a ton of mana to put as many, but we're talking about lands, we're talking about artifacts, enchantments, creatures. This could get you a whole ton of value from your graveyard, and it's a pretty hefty body as well. So while I don't think this is going to be, a key piece in any cycling deck that you build moving forward out of the box, if you're going to sit on play with these decks out of the box, I think this is a super important card for that build here. What are your thoughts on the Forgotten Cat Beast?
I completely agree with you. I think you said pretty much everything that needed to be said about it. It's a decent body.
Decent body? Thing's huge. Can you imagine this thing coming down on you?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's still, 8 mana.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I will say, though, if you do have the chance to go and play in a Commander 2020 event where you play with the decks out of the box, my R Store did that last year, the games go long, and you will have plenty of mana. So 8 mana is not completely out of the question. Last year's decks had Storm Herd, which was like I think it's 11 mana or 9 mana. It's some ridiculous number of mana to give you a flying Pegasus token for each of your life points. Mm-hmm. So you get like 20 some odd Pegasus in some cases. So 8 mana is a lot, but it's not outside the realm of possibility in a more casual commander environment. So this is still a pretty damn cool card.
And it's a cat, so I would just automatically play it regardless.
And it's a cat, yeah. Any cat basically just adds like 15 points to its overall stock, so...
Yeah.
Cats are good. Next up, we have Martial Impetuous, or Impetus? Impetus. This is also part of a cycle in each color. 2 white enchantment aura, uncommon, enchants a creature, gives it +1, and is goaded. So a goaded is a mechanic from the original Conspiracy set, which was a draft-focused multiplayer environment that was all kinds of wacky. You drafted as a pod, you had cards being revealed during the pod to like borrow and trade. It was a very, very cool set. But goading is, it attacks each combat if able, and attacks a player other than you if able. So, it also says the text, whenever enchanted creature attacks each other creature that's attacking one of your opponents, gets +1/+1 until the end of turn. So effectively, you put this on someone else's creature. And it's kind of like a political tool. Mm-hmm. So that they can they have to attack everybody else. And that's kind of the really cool thing about Commanders, that you have these political moments where you say, well, I'll beef that up, but just don't come my way for a couple turns. And then hopefully get some sort of like a board wipe to finish this, or to before this goes completely out of control for your opponents. So, thoughts on this one?
Could be useful to make a deal.
Yeah. We've been watching a ton of game nights recently, and I think that statement is made more often than any episode is like, let's make a deal. Don't kill me, let's make a deal. And it's not so practical when we're playing Commander one-on-one, but in our groups, there have been certainly moments that you've certainly said, well, she threatens a lot of damage with her Sir Gwyn deck, and just says, well, I'm not going to turn this 10/10 double striking vigilant lifelink death touch monstrosity on you if you don't do something, So, yeah. Politics. Something this country's really great at. Next, we have Trynn, Champion of Freedom, 3 white, legendary creature, human soldier, mythic rare, 3/3. It partners with Silvar, Devourer of Fate. We'll get to that soon. At the beginning of your instant, if you attacked this turn, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Powerful stuff here.
Yeah.
Attacking is not typically, obviously, if you're a given commander, you have to attack. So... to leave her back and maybe just attack with something small or evasive to get this kind of value over the course of a couple turns, pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And it partners with a cat.
A nightmare cat.
A nightmare cat, which we will get to here in a little bit. So certainly nothing flashy about this particular partner commander here, but I think when it's partnered up with its partner, the value is there. The value is definitely there. Then we have Verge Rangers, 2 and a white, Human Scout, rare, 3/3 first strike. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. And as long as opponent controls more lands than you may play lands from the top of your library. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can play a land this way if you have an additional land play remaining. So basically, yeah, so you just play lands at normal speed. There's no additional lands here. As we mentioned with the Cartographer Hawk thing, this is actually powerful because this effect exists in green. Courser of Krufix does something similar to this. So I quite like this guy a lot here, actually. Yeah, any thoughts on this guy right here?
No, you covered it.
Right on the head.
Yeah.
Right on the head. All right. We got Vitality Hunter next. 3 and a white for a creature nightmare at rare lifelink. 3/4. It has Monstrosity X. So you pay X white, and if this creature isn't monstrous, you put X/1/1 +1 X +1/+1 counters on it and it becomes monstrous. This is a mechanic from original Theros, the land of heroes and monsters. And when it becomes monstrous, you put a lifelink counter on up to X target creatures. Thoughts on this one?
That could be some heavy life gain.
Yeah, monstrous can be on an instant speed as well.
What is it?
Well, it's a nightmare.
Oh, definitely. Is it a horse?
It's a horse. Typically, so nightmare is an actual magic card. It's a horse.
Is that where the mare comes in from Nightmare?
Yes. But yeah, I think you hit it on the head. It's a massive amount of life gain that's kind of what white is known for, is gaining life, especially at mass quantities. And to be able to sink maybe 4 into the X right there and give 4 of your other creatures lifelink, especially at instant speed, which this can be done at. This could be a pretty significant blowout, or maybe just a last-ditch move to get some life back as you make a Hail Mary swing. So, pretty cool. I'm a fan. But what is it? So let's jump over to our blue cards next. This is kind of where my bread and butter exists. First up, we've got Crystalline Resonance, 2 and a blue enchantment, rare. Whenever you cycle a card, you may have Crystalline Resonance become a copy of another target permanent until your next turn, except it has this ability. I am super hyped for this card.
I am officially not, because that means that it's in your deck, and that means I am not going to have fun.
She's not wrong. Yeah, so as long as you've got the ability to copy something relevant, and this copies anything. It doesn't have a restriction. So planeswalkers, enchantments, artifacts. I think this is some pretty powerful stuff, and to consistently have it shape the way that you need it to, according to the game and kind of what the board state looks like, this is incredibly powerful here. It does kind of suck that it only goes into one deck, the cycling deck, obviously. But I think, even with that restriction in place on it, this is still a very powerful and very flexible card. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. You will hate this card. Next up, we have Decoy Gambit. We have 2 and a blue for an instant at rare. For each opponent, choose up to 1 target creature that player controls, then return that creature to its owner's hand, unless its controller has you draw a card. So we got a full board, full pod, 3 players, 3 mana, bounce 3 creatures, or draw cards. Their biggest threat.
Interesting.
I am about this. Because again, this is political.
Yeah.
I won't bounce that if you let me draw a card. Or, hey, Sam, I'll bounce Chris's giant dragon if you let me draw a card, and I won't bounce your night lady.
Yeah. More deals.
Machinations. Let's make a deal. So I like this card a lot. It's certainly, there's better ways to bounce creatures. Like Cyclonic Rift is obviously sort of the benchmark for mass bounce, but I think this thing's pretty good. The one thing I am noticing is that the decks themselves all seem to be on a very even keel. Last year the decks had a lot of imbalances to them, I thought. Especially the mana bases made it so that you were drawing. Like, the decks were 40 lands with a bunch of mana rocks, and so approximately 50% of your deck was mana. And in this instance, the mana bases have been tweaked a lot more. There's a reasonable amount of mana in each deck as far as lands go. There's like 36 lands, 37 lands with rocks. So there's powerful cards in all these decks, and I think you're going to be able to churn through your deck very fast with cards like this. I'm kind of rambling here now. But what I'm saying is that the decks are powerful, but in the right way. So I had games last year during the Commander event where we were playing out of the box that would just last forever because no one would draw threats. No one would draw any action. And I think just, what the cards we've seen so far here is that we've seen some really good tweaks made to these things. And I'm going to get on to the next card before I go off on a massive tangent because it's an otter! 2 blue, Eon Frolicker, Elemental Otter, rare, 5/5. It flies. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, target opponent takes an extra turn after this one. Until your turn, you and planeswalkers you control gain protection from that player.
Let's make a deal.
Let's make a deal.
I think that's the mantra for this set.
Yeah, I think you're 100% on the mark there. This is a very strange card because in Commander, extra turns make and break games. Yeah. I don't quite know how to look at this. Just the fact that you are safe from that player is pretty good.
But only for one turn, and what they accomplish in that one turn could
exactly.
inevitably be your undoing. So I feel this is actually a bit too tipped in your opponent's favor.
Yeah.
It's almost a double-edged sword, really.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly could, say, hey, I'm going to help you get back into the game a little bit. Maybe you need to draw some cards. So it's definitely a deal maker, I think, but you definitely don't want this to bite you in the ass. The one thing that this is not protecting you from is wrath effects or global effects. So if they play like a Cyclonic Rift, or if they play a Wrath of God, or anything that destroys everything, or destroys all of, upset permanent, like the cleansing wave we saw in the white, this isn't keeping you safe from that. So, dangerous. So,
yep.
Frolic at your own risk. Next up, we have Ethereal Forager. 4 white for an elemental whale. It's rare, 3/3. It has delve, flying, and whenever it attacks, you may return an instant or sorcery card exile with Ethereal Forager to its owner's hand. So delving lets you pay the colorless mana cost by removing cards from your graveyard. So in a heavy spell slinger deck, you can make this thing be about 2 mana effectively, and then if you exile all 4 instants and sorceries, you can get those back. This is powerful.
Quite powerful.
Really powerful. You can buy back, counter magic, removal spells. Yeah, this is some serious power here. Very, very cool card. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unlike this next card, which is completely ridiculous. Fierce Guardianship, 2 and a blue for an instant at rare. If you control a commander, you may cast a spell without paying its mana cost. Counter target non-creature spell. I don't know what to say about this. This is ridiculous. Usually every single year in a Commander product, a card is printed and everyone just goes, that's it. Like, this is the chase rare of the set. Last year it was Dockside Extortionist, which just makes all those treasures for the enchantments and artifacts your opponents control. True Name Nemesis was one a couple of years ago. This is a powerful, powerful card. And I know that we don't play a lot of competitive EDH. I have a Tulane deck that is effectively competitive level. But this is a card that goes in every single blue competitive EDH deck that, wants to go off on a very early turn with a combo kill. It's cool, but yeah, this is powerful. Way, way powerful. That's all I'm going to say about that. Free counter magic is always good. Please see Force of Will, Force of Negation, Pact of Negation,
That art is sick.
Oh, the art? Mm-hmm. This is insane. Absolutely insane. If this ever becomes a Judge promo, this will be just the hottest thing in the world. Mm-hmm. Hands down.
I agree.
Next up, we've got Halden. Yeah, Halden. Halden, the avid arcanist, 2 and a blue legendary creature, human wizard, mythic rare, 1/4. He partners with Paco, the arcane retriever. And yes, it's a dog. You may play non-creature cards from exile with fetch counters on them if you exiled them, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast those spells. Thoughts on Halden?
I'm sorry, what?
That's exactly the reaction that I had to this when I first read this card, because without Paco, Halden does nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically when Paco attacks, it exiles the top card of everyone's library with a fetch counter on it, which then allows Halden to cast those cards. So they have to be partnered together. This is the one instance of a partnered pair in this Commander product that typically you can have partners that act independently of each other. But Paco and Halden here have to be working together. You can't just play, well, I'm just going to play a Paco deck. I'm going to play a Halden deck, you know. You can play the white human that makes the human tokens by itself, but Paco and Halden have to be played together, which I think is kind of a design fail, but the ultimate flavor win, because dog is man's best friend.
Yes.
So, very powerful, but obviously only in one deck. Good stuff here. Next up, we've got Nascent Metamorph, 1 and a blue for a shapeshifter at rare, 1/1. Whenever it attacks, blocks, target opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a creature card. Nascent Metamorph becomes a copy of that card until end of turn. Then that player puts all cards revealed this way on the bottom of their library in a random order. That's really cool. Because again, it's a political tool because you're targeting an opponent. So if you can look around and say, well, who's got big creatures in their decks? And, you know, there's plenty of ways to manipulate the top of your library. So if I can say, hey, Sam, you know, I bet you've got a big old dragon in your deck. Can I turn my Metamorph into it? Pretty cool stuff here. And it's cheap, too. And the body is proportionate for the cost, but the ability to just, especially in, you know, the early turns, you play this on turn 2 when people are producing, you know, mana rocks and ramping, and you just turn this sideways and go, nah, you over there in the corner, and they flip over a 10/10?
That could also fail, though.
I mean, yeah. It could. It could be like a 0 something.
It could be something completely useless for you, and
It
then
could be.
you owe your opponent something in return for nothing.
Yeah, and they could do that. The nice thing is that it doesn't trigger enter the battlefield effects. That's important here. So you're just looking for just raw power, or, you know, when the creature deals damage trigger. This is a pretty wild card here. I wouldn't expect this to be anything all that powerful outside of your casual commander decks, but it's still pretty cool.
And super cute.
And super cute, yes.
I'm not sure what it's trying to be there, but
It can be whatever it wants to be.
Wise words.
Wise words. Next up, we have Psychic Impetus. 2 and a blue for an enchantment aura. Uncommon, enchants a creature. Gives it +2/+2, and it is goaded again. And whenever enchanted creature attacks, you scry 2. So don't attack me, and I'm just going to sit over here and manipulate the top of my library. That's pretty cool here. I'm still not a fan of this goad mechanic, though. You know, and especially, I think if anything, this would dissuade me. Like, if somebody cast this on my creature, I would not attack with it, because I don't want them to be attacking and letting my opponent. I don't want to be attacking with something and letting my opponent scry every turn and attack with it. I don't want to do this. So what I look at this is like a pacifism effect, you know, with the white spell that prevents it from attacking or blocking. I'm not doing anything. Like, this is basically a removal spell, in my opinion.
Yeah, it can be. I see that.
Yeah, but like if you have like if you're like teamed up with somebody on the table, and just say, hey, just keep punching them, and I'll try to find a dig to an answer. That might be one way to make a deal. But yeah, this is flexible.
A bit, yeah.
Pretty cool stuff here, and it's got a cat on the art. Next up, we have the Souvenir Snatcher. 4 and a blue for a bird at rare. 4/4, flying whenever this creature mutates, gain control of target non-creature artifact. So it has the mutate cost here for 5 and a blue, and it lets you put this on top of, under, or on top of non-human creature that you own, and then it mutates into the chosen creature on top, plus all the abilities from underneath it. So we talked about mutate last week, so basically you can put this on top of whatever you want. So let's say that you've got, I don't know, a shapeshifter like Nascent Metamorph. You could mutate the Snatcher onto the Nascent Metamorph, and all of a sudden you've got a metamorphing, mutating bird thing. That gets complicated.
A little bit.
So the ability to mutate, I still don't have a full grasp on it personally, because they're all pretty expensive, and I know that they wanted to expand upon the mechanic within this Commander product because mutate is a key mechanic of Ikoria. And so for them to add in all these extra design elements that they couldn't into the Commander product is quite cool. And obviously, there's plenty of artifacts to steal in a game of Commander. Your Soul Rings, your swords, your mana rocks, things like that. So this is pretty powerful stuff here. I don't know if paying 6 mana to do it is all that worth it.
Guess it depends on what you're mutating to.
True, yeah. And it only goes in the mutate deck. That is kind of the downside here. This year in particular, with the cycling deck and the mutate deck, it's rare, especially in previous Commander years. There have been themes inside the Commander decks, but not so much. But last year we got the Morph deck, which I tried to build and I hated it. And you laughed at me as I was putting it together because you even said I was going to hate it.
Yes.
But to have specific mechanics that can only go into one deck is also a downside, but also an upside too, because it forces you to go a little bit outside the box to build your decks. So I like mutate, but I just think that this is not going to be a competitive deck. But I could be proven wrong easily. So we'll see. And I'll just stop rambling now, and I'll go on to Tidal Barracuda. Dun 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 dun. Having a good day, guys. 3 and a blue for a fish, 3/4 at rare. Any player may cast spells as though they had flash. Your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. I look at this and just say, play the fish and say, go nuts, guys. Go freaking nuts. This is a dangerous card.
Very much so.
I'm a fan of instant speed interaction. You are not a fan of it because it's usually at your face, at your demise, at your misfortune. But a card like this, I think, is just so much can go right with this to just turn a game that everyone's waiting. I play my creature, play my this just seems like the coolest card.
Yes, but I could also see it going just as badly for you.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not putting this in a deck unless I can't abuse the heck out of this. You've seen cards out of like my 2 Vasa deck, Leyland of Anticipation, which gives all of my instants, which all my cards flash at this point. But to just have more ability to do this, there's a reason that cards can only be cast when they can be cast, because they're just too good otherwise. Little fish throws it all out the window here. This card's nuts.
Might pair well with an ability that makes all of your creatures indestructible.
It might. But yeah, this card's wild. I don't see it playing well outside of a casual table, but this is a very, very powerful card here.
I'm excited for the foil for that one.
Yes. Now, I will say that, and this is important here, is that the only foils that will exist of these cards are of the legendary face cards.
Ah.
You can't get these in foil. I know, it sucks.
Yeah.
Unless, like I mentioned, the Judge promos, because we have seen Commander cards in the past become Judge promos. That could be the case here. I don't think they'll make Tidal Barracuda a Judge promo.
I don't know about you, but I'd rather see the fish in foil than Halden there.
With his shiny green thing that he wears.
That does nothing unless his hound is there.
Yeah, well, okay.
Moving on.
She's more of a fish person, apparently. Let's go to some black cards. This is your jam right here, babe.
Oh, yeah.
So we've got Boneyard Mycodrax, whatever a Mycodrax is. 2 and a black for a fungus rare star. Has power and toughness equal to the number of cards of the number of other creature cards in your graveyard, and you can scavenge it by paying 4 and a black to exile this card from your graveyard and put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to the card's power on target creature. Do this only at sorcery speed. This is wild.
Yeah?
So you're working on a Muldrotha deck
Yes.
right now. So, and this is really strange because typically cards in graveyards, you never really think about their power and their toughness. But because it's checking for this in the graveyard, it will still have the power and toughness equal to the number of other creature cards in your graveyard on it when you're scavenging it. So this can become massive in any kind of Muldrotha deck or in a Zoni deck or a Marin deck. Anything that wants to abuse its graveyard, this is going to slot into nicely and just get really big. Mm-hmm. Really big, yeah. This is cool. This is cool design space here. I like this a lot. It's a fun design. Next up, we've got Daring Fiendbonder, 3 and a black for a human warlock rare. Haste attacks each turn if able. It's a 5/1. You can pay 1 and a black and exile it from your graveyard. Put an indestructible counter on target creature. Active this ability only at any time you could cast a sorcery. It's pretty underwhelming, if I'm honest. Typically, indestructibility isn't all that great when there's so much mass exile removal flying around in Commander, Path to Exile, Swords of Plowshare, things like that. Things getting bounced back to their hand. Yeah, not feeling this one.
Nothing's really going for it except for its art.
Yeah. This next card, though, Deadly Rollick, 3 and a black for an instant at rare, is again one of the cycle of being able to cast for free if you control your commander. Exiles target creature.
I just have to say that I'm really loving like the derpy dragons. In
This is.
set.
I think this is Omric or Onoric. I think is the. Oh yeah. Oh no, it's Otrimi. That's the creature that thing is. So
many derpy dragons. I love it.
Yeah, very much How to Train Your Dragon,
Yes.
Toothless.
Toothless, yes.
But yeah, this card right here, free exile.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah, I would say any black deck
Pretty much.
wants to play this card without fail.
Removal's always good.
Removal's always good, as we say. Next up, we have Dredge the Mire, 3 and a black for a sorcery at rare. Each opponent chooses a creature card in their graveyard. Put those cards on the battlefield under your control. So why are you laughing at this one?
I mean, it's another political thing. Like,
yeah.
It's another let's make a deal.
Yep.
And in this instance, I mean, you can make multiple deals.
Yeah, you can. And what I think is really interesting about this card too is that there's ways that you can sculpt other players' graveyards. Mm-hmm. The creature Scavenging Use comes to mind that lets you exile cards from graveyards. So you can basically just say, all right, I'm going to leave you with your 10/10. I'm going to leave you with that giant dragon. I'm going to leave you with this big cat thing here. And you would get those. Mm-hmm. This is powerful stuff here. And again, like you said, let's make a deal. Hey Sam, I'll give you this if you don't turn it my way.
Yeah.
So, pretty cool stuff here. This is like a Mass Exhume, which is a 1 and a black for everybody does it, but it's onto their board. But this is pretty cool here. Yep. And fortunately, the reanimation spell just missed the long dead colony of dung scorpions. I don't even want to know what that looks like.
No.
All right, moving on. We've got the Mind Leecher, 4 black for a nightmare. It's a rare. It's a 5/5. It flies. Whenever this creature mutates, exile the top card of each opponent's library face down. You may look at those and play those cards as long as they remain exiled. That's pretty wild. Now, it's important to note here, you may look at and play those cards for as long as they remain exiled. That's really awkward because typically cards like this would allow you to play them with any color of mana. This one doesn't let you do that. But that being said, because this is something that you've run into a lot recently, the difference between cast and play. You can cast spells, you can't cast lands. So I think that's sort of the trade-off here, is that if you're eggs on the top card of their libraries, you're taking their lands. And you can play their lands to then play their spells. So this is powerful. This is real wild stuff here. But it has to be mutated for this ability to go off. So I don't know how often you'll fire this off in a game, just because mutate is typically quite expensive. But if you can fire this off, 2 or 3 times in a game, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good stuff. And it's a giant nightmare
quite
thing.
Large with flying, so I mean, if you mutate that correctly, that thing is a nightmare on its own.
Oh man, she did it. She called it out. It's a nightmare. All right, let's move on before any more bad jokes are made. Netherborn Altar, 1 in a black artifact. Rare, you may tap it and put a soul counter on Netherborn Altar. Put your commander into your hand from the command zone. Then you lose 3 life for each soul counter on Netherborn Altar. So, your Sir Gwen deck.
Yep.
She costs 6 mana.
Mm-hmm.
Don't remind her. That is the biggest downfall of that deck. And honestly, the biggest downfall for a lot of commanders that do cost a lot of mana, especially if they're not in green. So you have a harder time of ramping your mana to cast these commanders again. So Netherborn Altar is a neat way to get around the commander tax that will be placed on them. But the question really to you then, because this is something that you've dealt with a lot, is, how much life are you willing to pay to this altar before it's too much?
As you always tell me when I'm playing the lands that ping me for 2 or ping me for 1, you've got 40 life.
Yeah.
You've got 40 life, you've got the chances to regain life, but most decks, as you've said, cannot run efficiently or effectively without their commanders. So even if I had to pay 9 life to get my commander back.
So that's kind of the barrier for entry right there? Is 9 your cap?
Not necessarily, but I mean it does say to.
It puts the counters on them, on the Netherborn Altar. So every time that you tap this again, you would lose 3, 6, 9, 12, and it scales up.
So I mean, yeah, I would probably pay around 9 to be able to get my commander back for her 6 mana cost rather than
paying 10.
Paying 10, 12. Like, after a certain point of her getting put back to the command zone, it's no longer viable for me to bring her back, and I just have to use one of my backup plans to try to win.
And sometimes that's what you got to do. There are ways to remove counters from permanents.
Lovely.
I think this might be... this is a super narrow case here, obviously, and it's very on theme for Black to be able to do this. Last year, we saw the first instance of cards putting your commander from the command zone into your hand. I think it was the first instance. There was a couple of green cards that did it. So this is a cool design here. And if you have the ability to manipulate the counters on there, or if you're playing a deck that doesn't really care about its life, you could get away with doing this quite often. And it's pretty damn powerful, I think.
Yeah.
But there's always a cost.
Yep.
Next up, we've got Nikara, Lair Scavenger, 2 in a black for a legendary creature, human cleric, mythic rare, 2/2, partners with Yannick, the scavenging sentinel. She has menace, and whenever another creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had 1 or more counters on it, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. So +1/+1 counters, vigilance counters, first strike counters, basically any counter that you can create that goes onto a creature. She's letting you draw cards.
Yeah.
This is pretty powerful stuff here. I think I'm pretty sure that Yannick is the one that puts counters onto those creatures. So this is one of those instances where I don't think Nakara works too well by herself. But I think obviously paired up, they are quite powerful here.
It is possible for her to function on her own, but not as efficient.
Yeah. Black obviously is a great way of just being able to sacrifice your own creatures quite, willy-nilly, if you will. So to be able to draw cards like this at that rapid of a pace, I think you could do some interesting stuff with this. This might play well with Undying counters, Persist counters. There's some cool stuff to be done here, especially if you can recur those threats, easily. Oh, hey, this might go into my Corval deck. Anyway, moving on to Parasitic Impetus. Gosh. 2 and a black, enchantment aura, uncommon. Enchanted creature gives it +2/+2. It's goaded, so it can't attack you, but it must attack each turn if able. And the enchanted creature attacks, its controller loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life.
This is more so almost a removal spell.
Yes.
Rather than the other one, because I can't think of anyone that would blatantly say, I'm going to attack with this and give you 2 life. Here you go.
Nope.
Thanks, bud. Thank you for letting me have +2/+2.
Yeah.
I'm actually quite upset that they used such amazing art on such a crappy card.
That is more common than you might imagine.
Like, that has the potential to be my favorite art ever, and it is on such a
But the card sucks.
bad card that it just loses points.
That's fair. Well, let's skip that bad card and move on to Species Specialist. This card is wild. 2 black, human warrior, rare, 2/3. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type, and whenever a creature of the chosen type dies, you may draw a card.
Yeah. Seems really beneficial in some decks.
Yeah. We'll get to that. So obviously, tribal decks can take advantage of this. If you are playing it in a token deck that makes a specific kind of token, and you have the ability to sacrifice them at will, this could just draw you a zillion cards.
You can draw you your library.
Draw your entire library. This card is wild. I see this being very powerful, in tribal decks like I mentioned, token decks like I mentioned. Outside of that, it's kind of risky. Just because when you sit down to a pot of commander, you can't guarantee that everyone's playing well. If I pick dragon, everyone's got a dragon, and so on and so forth. So this has to be kind of sculpted. I think this is more done for your own benefit to play creatures in your own deck. And any cards that you draw from your opponent's creatures dying is just sort of, icing on the cake, essentially, I think.
You do know, I don't know if you were hinting at that, but if they do own dragons and you say dragons, you draw the card.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, but you can't guarantee that.
Yeah. But maybe if you chose something like, I don't know,
Humans.
They're pretty common.
Yeah. Now, there are ways to manipulate the creature types of cards. So,
True.
There's something here. I think this card is cool. There's something here. So, that's all I'll say about that. And go on to our last black card, Titan Hunter. 4 and a black for a human warrior at rare, 4/5, beginning of each player's instep. If no creatures died this turn, Titan Hunter deals 4 damage to that player. And for 1 and a black, you sacrifice a creature and you gain 4 life. This is pretty cool. This is pretty scary, too.
Yep.
I can imagine this in heavy black decks that could potentially cast this off of an early Dark Ritual. And, while everyone else is developing their mana still, playing out their, ramp spells and their mana rocks, you're just sitting there saying, you take 4, you take 4, you take 4, you take 4. This is pretty cool stuff here.
Yep.
Pretty cool stuff. And being able to sacrifice creatures as well for a small activated mana cost is pretty powerful as well, I'd say here. It is a bit expensive, though. That's my only knock. But the sword is...
It's pretty powerful, though, so I can't blame it for being 5 mana.
Yeah. And it actually encourages an interesting bit of political play as well, because, if you're sitting down at a table, people don't want to be attacking and having things trade. So this might just say, hey, if you guys don't start attacking each other, you're going to start losing 1/10 of your life a turn. Obviously it's not their starting level title, so that adds up after a while. So, and especially if you're playing, you know, a black deck that can, you know, repeatedly deal damage with any kind of death effects, this can stack up very, very fast. So this is, you know, quietly powerful.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. Cool stuff indeed. So next up, we're going to jump into our red cards. And we're going to look at Agitator Ant. 2 in a red for a creature insect rare. At the beginning of your end step, each player puts 2+1/+1 counters on creatures they control, and then you goad each creature that had counters put on it this way. So they can no longer attack you. So this is literally doing what it says. It just agitates the board and makes everyone kill each other.
I like it.
This is cool. I do not foresee this surviving long. Someone will kill this on sight. But yeah, that's a risk you play when you play things that are going to agitate the whole board.
It's cute, too.
It's cute.
I've never found an ant cute.
But that one is. That one is. Next up, we got a Shark Rider.
Yep.
One of my new favorite cards of all time. This is Browlin, the Sky Shark Rider. 3 in a red for a legendary creature, human shaman at Mythic Rare, 3/3, and it partners with Shabraz, the Sky Shark. We'll get to him soon enough. Whenever you discard a card, put a +1/+1 counter on Braylen, Sky Shark Rider, and it deals 1 damage to each opponent, and you may pay a red to give target shark trample until the end of turn. This card is wild. The Sky Shark is also wild. The two of them, basically their abilities to draw and discard pair off of each other very nicely and give you this effect. There are obviously ways to draw and discard your cards in Commander pretty much at the drop of a hat. This is very powerful stuff.
Yes.
I know that Chris, you talked to him recently. He's building the Infinite Shark deck?
Sharknado.
Sharknado is what he called it? Yeah. So this card's pretty wild. Very powerful stuff here. Yeah. Super good stuff. Basically play all the wheel effects, discard your hand, draw the many cards. This is good stuff. Very good stuff. Next up we have Deflecting Swat. 2 in a red for an instant at rare. Again, this is one that we can cast with our commanders in play. You may choose new targets for spell or ability. All those times that Sir Gwyn's been pathed, swords, terminated, putrefied, mortified.
She will have her vengeance.
She will have her vengeance. This is a pretty powerful effect here, regardless. Be able to change counter spell targets, removal spells, even abilities. This is good stuff right here. And again, you know, obviously I haven't really mentioned it yet, but the price tags down here are sort of what they are at, you know, current market value. If you see something that is reaching that $20 mark, you know you've got a pretty powerful card on your hand, and this is pretty impressive here. Because this could just save you from dying.
Having to pay 12 for your commander.
That too. Next up, we've got Fireflux Squad. 3 in a red for a human soldier. At rare, 4/3, it has haste. Whenever it attacks, you may exile another target attacking creature you control. And if you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card in the battlefield tapped and attacking, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order.
Did you just say that in one breath?
I did. When you do this for long enough, you get really good at reading lines of blocks of text like this. So this thing is pretty cool. I'm not a fan of the fact that it is, you know, off the top of your library, and you have to be able to really set this up to really get the effect that you want. But if you're able to upgrade, you know, a 1/1 token or something, you know, that's become, you know, inconsequential to the board, this is pretty powerful and could, you know, upend a board very quickly, especially if you play it on your 4th turn, you already have a creature in play and just attack, and you get something massive off your library. Pretty cool stuff here. No ETB effect, obviously, but, you know, or actually, you put the card on the battlefield, tap and attacking. It's not a cat. It does. Actually, so it would have triggered the ETB effect on it that way. So, yeah, this is powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got Frontier Warmonger, 3 in a red for a human warrior at rare, 4/4. Whenever one or more creatures attack one of your opponents or a planeswalker they control, those creatures gain menace until the end of turn. I know you like menace a lot.
Mm-hmm. Let's make a deal.
Let's make a deal.
I think this is the card that I pointed out. This also includes other opponents' creatures.
Yes, yes. So this can just be the ultimate political tool to because menace cards are just so hard to block. You know, and most of the board is just awash with creatures. This can just turn the tide of a game very, very quickly because all of a sudden nobody wants to attack properly anymore. And the first person who says, "Well, I can," and they do something, they're gonna do some damage on this. So this is really powerful stuff here. And it's for 4 mana for 4 mana is also a solid rate as well. So I like this card quite a bit.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. Next up, we have I love this card. I love this card. Lava Brink Floodgates. 3 and a red for an artifact rare. You can tap it to add 2 red mana. And at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player puts a Doom counter on Lava Brink Floodgates or removes a Doom counter from it. Then, if it has 3 or more Doom counters on it, you sacrifice it, and when you do, it deals 6 damage to each creature.
Wow.
Flavor. So again, let's make a deal.
Yeah.
Let's, I want to keep taking it off, putting it back on, taking it off, putting it back on. It's interesting that it is in multiples of 3 that this happens. Because if you were to play this, and let's say that you had a commanding board, your opponents could just say, put it on, put it on, put it on. You don't have the chance to get back around to you to put the counter on it yourself.
Yeah.
So this is quite cool, quite good stuff here. 6 damage kills a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And God, just the flavor of this is just beautiful. Next up, Molten Echoes, 2 red enchantment. At rare, when it enters battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever a non-token creature of the chosen type enters battlefield under your control, create a token that's a copy of that creature. That token gains haste. Exile at the beginning of the next end step. I'm not high on this effect, really. If you're only playing 1 creature per turn, it needs to be relevant to the board and it actually, do something when it attacks. Not high on this one. Not high at all. High?
I like the fire copy thing.
That's pretty cool. It's pretty hot. Next up, Shining Impetus. 2 and a red, enchantment aura, +2/+2 on enchanted creature, and whenever the enchanted creature attacks, you create a treasure token. So obviously this is goading as well. Now you can put this on your own creatures. Mm-hmm. That's important to point out here. In creating treasure tokens that can generate mana, that's pretty powerful. I wouldn't mind using this card personally, because if I am behind on the board, I'm basically saying, hey man, if you can give me, if you can keep attacking her, I'll create the treasures to get myself back in this game, and it gives you a bonus. This is a decently powerful effect here.
Yeah.
And this wild badger thing on here is
kind of looks like it was trying to be a raccoon, but then decided to be
something
a lemur,
some kind of bobcat thing. Yeah. Anyway, we have Spellpire Phoenix. So for 3 red, creature Phoenix, rare, 4/2 flying. When it enters battlefield, you may return target instant or sorcery card with a cycling ability. From your graveyard to your hand. At the beginning of each end step, if you cycle 2 or more cards this turn, return Spellpire Phoenix from your graveyard to your hand. So Phoenixes do this in Magic. That's just what they do. There's some goofy effect that they can do to get back out of the graveyard, back into your hand, and this is just the next in a very long line of them. I think this is pretty powerful, actually. The body is quite anemic, unfortunately. It's not doing a lot of combat. I think you're more doing this to get the cycling card from your graveyard back, attack with it, and then cycle to get it back again, and just continue to kind of let it die almost as like a sacrificial fodder. Heck, even sacrificing this doesn't seem all that bad. But 5 mana for the 4/2 is pretty underwhelming.
Yeah.
Personally. Yeah. Anyway, next up we've got the Surly Badger Soar. God, I love wizards sometimes. Creature types, guys. Bonus. 3 and a red, Badger Dinosaur, rare, 3/3. Whenever you discard a card, God, it's these little little hiccups there. Whenever you discard a creature card, put a +1/+1 counter on Surly Badgersaur. Whenever you discard a land card, create a treasure token. And when you discard a non-creature, non-land card, it fights up to one target creature you don't control. So this little guy does everything. Need some mana? Bigger? Fight a guy? This is awesome.
Badgers just don't give a.
Yeah, the honey badger just don't give up.
Yep.
Yeah. I like this because, it's keeping track of, obviously, multiple discard effects can have, effects that hit all of these, which I think is pretty powerful here. And the ability to choose, what you're discarding and when to do it is quite powerful as well. And obviously this can be done at instant speed.
Yep.
Which is very powerful. So I think once this thing gets big enough, or honestly, if you're just discarding lands, if you're playing this in something like a Lord Windgrace deck that can get lands out of its graveyard, or just any deck that can do an effect like that through like a Crucible of Worlds or Remnant Excavator, this gets pretty powerful here, and those treasure tokens start to add up. The fight is kind of whatever, I think, but if you can do this, because obviously the damage resets as you pass each turn, you could probably snipe a creature, early in the game every turn if you have a discard outlet. So this thing is powerful. Very surly indeed.
Yeah.
Thoughts on the Badgersaur?
I was just rereading it. It is an actual +1/+1 counter, so he
keeps those on there.
Keeps the beefiness.
Keeps the beefiness. Moving right along, we got some green cards to talk about now. Almost there, to the very end. We are... Oh my god. Why do they make these names I can't say? Capricopian.
Capricopian.
What she said. It's a goat hydra.
Because Capricorn...
Oh, yeah.
Goat.
And it's a goat hydra. What the hell's a goat hydra? Can you imagine?
That.
I
3
don't have to imagine it, but my god, that's terrifying. Rare 0/0. It enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. It's an X green. And you can pay 2 to put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then you may reselect which player Capricopian is attacking. Only the player Capricopian is attacking may activate this ability, and only during the declared attacker step.
Okay.
So I'm going to attack you.
Uh-huh.
And you say, no, I'll pay 2 to put a counter on it. I'm going to have it attack Chris. Oh my gosh. And so effectively, because the declare attacker step lasts as long as it does until you move to the phase. So then let's say that Chris goes, well, I wanted to attack Sam instead. And Sam says, well, I'm going to have to attack Chris again. And this just goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, making this thing monstrously huge.
Hot potato.
Literally a hot potato with the Capricopian. I said it right that time. This card's pretty cool.
I like it. Could you imagine if all 3 heads did the goat scream at once?
Oh, like from those really bad Taylor Swift meme videos?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Moving on, we've got Kazur, the Ruthless Stalker, 3 and a green for a legendary creature, human warrior, mythic rare, 3/3. It partners with Ukima, the Stalking Shadow. Get to that one soon. And whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. So I like that he functions by himself. Yeah. That's pretty good. Other than that, there's not a whole lot to say about Kazur here.
Not really.
Yeah. He's cool.
He's alright.
He's alright, yeah. Next up, we have Curious Herd. 3 and a green for an instant at rare. Choose target opponent. You create X 3/3 green beast creature tokens, where X is the number of artifacts that player controls.
Yikes.
Yeah, at their instep.
Yikes.
I mean, and how many games of Commander have we played where there's just been a mess of artifacts in play? Mm-hmm. Artifact lands, mana rocks, equipment, just creatures in general. This could be
catastrophic against
catastrophic. Yeah, let's move on. This card's really good. Moving on to the Glade Muse, 2 and a green for a beast at rare, 2/4. Whenever a player casts a spell, if it's not their turn, that player draws a card. So this is for everybody. This is pretty powerful stuff here because this is obviously going into a deck that has a lot of instant speed spells, flash spells as well. Not every deck can take advantage of this.
No.
You know, most decks have, a handful of instant speed removal spells, but, you could certainly tune your deck to be able to cast just a mess of spells every single turn. If you have something like a Seedborn Muse untapping all of your mana, or a Wilderness Reclamation untapping all of your mana every turn, this gets out of control.
Especially if you have Vivian that gives all of your stuff
instant. Yeah, even creatures could take advantage of this as well here. Yeah, this could get wild and out of control very quickly. But yeah, like I said, not every deck can take advantage of this. So the cards that they'll draw, as opposed to what you'll be drawing, doesn't even matter. They might draw 2 or 3, you might draw 15 though.
Definitely needs a deck that is tailored to this, but I can see it being extremely awesome.
Yeah, this comes from the Dinosaur Temur deck that has a bunch of instant spells in it, so definitely very, very cool stuff here. Next up, we have Obscuring Haze, 2 and a green. You can cast this if you don't have your commander. If you have your commander, cast for free. Prevent all damage that will be dealt this turn by creatures your opponents control. Typically, fog effects prevent all combat damage, but this is only for your opponents. So if you were to make an Alpha Strike, they line up blocks and it says, well, you're going to lose all your creatures, as I'll lose all mine. You say, no, I'm going to Obscure Haze, and now you lose your board instead.
Yeah.
Pretty good stuff here. Not as good as the other ones, but, green can't get everything, wizards. Anyway, not salty. Predatory Impetus, 4 and a green, enchanted creature. It gets +3/+3 and must be blocked if able and is goaded. So I'll play this one too. I'll stop on the biggest, baddest thing on the board, and I'll just say, I don't even care. Thoughts on this one?
You play this if you just don't care.
Yeah.
I mean,
a little chaos.
A little bit.
Wild.
Cool art.
It's a little pricey, but I think for what it's doing, it
has potential.
Pretty impactful, yeah. Next up, we have the Ravenous Gigantotherium. Sure. 5 green rare, 3/3. It has Devour 3, so as it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. Though this creature enters the battlefield with 3 times that many +1/+1 counters on it.
Definitely Giganto.
Yep. When it enters the battlefield, it deals X damage divided as you choose among up to X target creatures, where X is its power. For each of those creatures deals damage equal to its power to Ravenous Gigantotherium. Okay, so it's a pseudo fight effect. So it comes into play, it deals damage, and then they deal their damage back to it.
Interesting.
So you could engineer a situation where you eat up a bunch of little 1/1s, make this be, let's say, I don't know, like a 15/15, and then just snipe a bunch of 2/2s.
Yeah.
This is quite powerful. 7 mana is a lot, but I think if you are casting this for 7 mana, you obviously ramped a considerable amount, especially in the early game, and this could just take out a ton of creatures. If you're playing like a token deck, could just take down everything. Cool.
Yeah.
Gigantotherium. What the hell? Next up, Sawtusk Demolisher. 4 green for a creature beast rare, 6/6. It mutates. It mutates for 3 and a green. It has trample, and whenever this creature mutates, destroy target non-creature permanent, and its controller creates a 3/3 green beast creature token. So it's Beast Within on a stick. That's pretty cool. This is a mutate cost that I will happily pay. Easily.
Definitely.
Yeah. Pretty cool stuff here. Good bread and butter commander card. There's always things to blow up, and even then Beast is kind of whatever.
Oh, look at the baby.
Yes, there's a little baby in the background, yes. Next up, we have Selective Adaptation. 4 green for a rare sorcery. Reveal the top 7 cards of your library. Choose from among them a card with Flying, a card with First Strike, and so on for Double Strike, Death Touch, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance. Put one of the chosen cards onto the battlefield, the other chosen cards into your hand, and the rest into your graveyard. This is a bad card. This requires the most ridiculous amount of setup. I mean, 7 cards is a lot. Mm-hmm. But to try and hit all of that is frankly absurd.
But imagine if you managed it.
But if you did, you would effectively draw 6 cards and put a creature into play. I know this is from the deck that cares about, abilities on creatures. And I'm sure that there are plenty of people out there who are just waiting to just play the keyword soup commander deck and just put, because you have things that have like Flying and Death Touch, Defender and First Strike. You could do a lot of wacky stuff with a deck like this, but for a one-shot effect like this, I think you could do a little bit better.
Touché.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll get blown up by this at some point, I'm sure. So take it with a grain of salt. Next up, we've got the Slippery Bogbonder. 3 and a green for a human druid. At rare, 3/3, it has Flash and Hexproof. And when it enters the battlefield, you put a Hexproof counter on target creature, then move any number of counters from among creatures you control onto that creature. This will kill somebody, I guarantee it.
Yep.
The reference here, especially for newer Magic players, is Slippery Bogle, which is a 1/1 that cannot be targeted by spells or abilities. It has Shroud on it, and is the linchpin of the Bogle modern deck. So to see this sort of like, and this is a Bogle right there on her shoulder. So to see this in a different form is actually quite cool. This is neat. This is a cool design. I like this a lot. And I think this can go into any deck that wants to be able to abuse +1/+1 counters, vigilance counters, any kind of counter you can put on a creature. This is absolutely a key piece of that. And to be that hexproof is just even better. Slippery. All right. Into the colorless cards. There's only 5. Bonder's Ornaments, 3 generic mana for an artifact at common. Tap it to add 1 mana of any color, and you can pay 4 and tap it, and each player who controls a permanent named Bonder's Ornament draws a card. I mean, it's mana ramp, but it's not impressive, I don't think. Good for budget players, but I certainly don't think it's good. It's beyond that. It's pretty underwhelming. Next up, Cryptic Trilobite XX. It enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. You can remove a +1/+1 counter from it to add colorless to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to activate abilities, and you can pay 1, tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on it. It is a 0/0. This is broken. I just don't know how.
It almost seems... I don't know. I wanted to say it almost seemed like it was very close to being its own little infinite loop.
Oh, this absolutely is. Like, this is an infinite loop in some form or fashion,
Yeah.
Very rarely will you see a card that is a self-contained infinite loop, and you need some kind of setup. But if you have the ability to untap this thing and generate mana while it's going off... it's the dramatic reversal. Scepter combo. I'm forgetting the name of the scepter now. But basically, it lets you put dramatic reversal, which untaps all of your permanents, all non-permanents on the scepter. And as long as you have mana rocks, you can untap those mana rocks as well and generate infinite mana that way. This thing does that. That basically goes into that shell as well. I don't know, because it's only activated abilities, I don't know what you're doing with that mana. It's very specific. Yeah. Urza High Lord Artificer comes to mind to be able to activate his ability every single, multiple times. I'm certain that people out there have already broken this. I just can't think of what it does. So, anyway, it's powerful though. As is this next card, Manascape Refractor. 3 generic mana for an artifact at rare. It enters the battlefield tapped, thank goodness. And it has all activated abilities of all lands on the battlefield. You may spend mana as though it were any mana of any color to pay the activation costs on Manascape Refractor. This is downright dangerous, and it's good that it comes into play tapped, but if you can untap it, there you go. Because obviously lands have to tap to activate their abilities. As we were talking about in our group chat, we were trying to figure out if there was a land that untapped itself somehow. We don't think there is. I couldn't think of one, so I don't think there's anything inherently too destructive with this, but this is some seriously powerful stuff here to be able to generate any kind of mana ability. So if you have a deck that has, that can get out all these utility lands to do a multitude of effects, this can probably get a hand very, very quickly. Cool card. Sanctuary Blade, 2 generic mana, rare artifact. As it comes into play or becomes attached to a creature, choose a color, and the equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has protection from the last chosen color. Equipped for 3. Hey, Sir Gwen. Want a sword? It's not great.
No.
It's,
But can really be beneficial for something like my Night deck.
Yep, Sir Gwen, or any equipment deck can probably take advantage of this in some capacity. Yeah. It's powerful stuff here, for sure. And then our last artifact card, our last colorless card, I should say, is Twinning Staff. 3 generic mana for an artifact at rare. If you would copy a spell 1 or more times, instead copy that spell that many times plus an additional time. You may choose new targets for the additional copy, and you can pay 7 and tap it. Copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. This is also probably broken some way. Typically, I think this is the first instance of a copying ability on an artifact. I could be wrong, but any spellslinger deck can just do ridiculous things with this. So powerful stuff here. I think the only thing holding it back is that 7 generic mana activation cost on it. But beyond that, this card is wild.
But I mean, if you've got something like the Cryptic Trilobite that...
Yes, to remove those counters, to potentially cast something that untaps this thing to put more counter. It builds itself, people. It builds itself. All right. We are into the home stretch here. It's time for the multicolored cards. Woo! Actually, yeah, let's keep it going. Keep it going. We've got Akim, the Soaring Wind. 2 white, blue, red, white. 3/4, bird dinosaur, mythic rare, flying. Whenever you create 1 or more tokens for the first time each turn, create a 1/1 white bird creature token with flying, and you can pay 3 white, blue, red, and creature tokens you control gain double strike until the end of turn.
Neat.
Pretty awesome. It is limiting that it only does it once per turn. That kind of sucks. But the ability to give those tokens double strike is quite powerful. I don't know what this deck looks like. I can't imagine a deck that takes advantage of this all that well. Jeskai tokens. I played Jeskai Ascendancy in Standard. That was a cool deck, but as a Commander deck, I don't see this being a thing. Who knows? But it's still very, very cool, and it's cool to see unique commanders like this. This is a first for the Jeskai colors here. As is our next commander, Gavi, Nest Warden, 2 white, blue, red, for a human shaman mythic rare, 2/5. You may pay 0 mana rather than pay the cycling cost of the first card you cycle each turn. And whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 2/2 red and white dinosaur cat creature token.
Kitty!
So this is pretty powerful stuff here. It'll be tricky without additional setup to be able to do this on other people's turns to make the token, but the real power in Gavi lies in the free cycling every single turn. So on your turn, cycle a thing. Your turn, cycle a thing. That's where the real power for this card lies in. But hey, if you can make tokens, and it's only your second card each turn, so you can't even make them multiple times in a turn, which is kind of a bummer. It's another limiting factor. But again, like I said, the 0 cycling on each first turn is very powerful. Very good stuff here. And there are some very powerful cycling cards out there that I've looked into. The deck is good. Next up, we've got Jarina Kudrow, 1 red, white, black, 3/3 human soldier mythic rare. Enters the battlefield and creates a 1/1 white human soldier creature token for each time you've cast a commander from the command zone this game. Yikes! So the first time you get 1, then 2, yada yada yada. Other humans you control get +2/+0. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Cast a human, make it big. Cast her, make a human. Pretty simple stuff here. I like commanders like that are just very much on their face. They just do a thing. I think this is cool. Pretty generic, but I think it's pretty powerful stuff here. Good stuff. Next up, we've got Calamax, the Stormrise, 1 green, blue, red for an elemental dinosaur mythic rare, 4/4. Whenever you cast your first instant spell each turn, if Calamax, the Stormrise is tapped, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. And whenever you copy an instant spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Calamax. There's, again, kind of like with Gavi and Akim, there is some restriction here, which is a bit of a limiting factor, I think. But for anybody's turn, I think that's the power here. And just to have it be, have it attacked one turn, and then every turn thereafter until you untap again, you have the ability to keep forking these spells, which is pretty powerful here. I like that we have a spell slinger commander in this color. This is not something we've had previously, so it is cool to see that. But I like to see that it is not just absurdly powerful. It's every spell that you cast. If it's tapped, it does a thing. I like the limiting factor on this as well here. So yeah, good stuff.
Yep.
Cool. Next up, we've got Cathril, the Aspect Warper, 2 white, black, green for a 3/3 Nightmare Insect. Oh my god. Whenever it enters the battlefield, put a flying counter on any creature you control. If a creature card in your graveyard has flying, repeat this process for first strike, double strike, death touch, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, trample, and vigilance. Then put a +1/+1 counter on Cathril for each counter put on a creature this way. Wild.
Awesome.
Yes. This goes back to that that green card that looks for all of those those ability types in the top 7. And kind of like your Muldrotha deck where you want to put creatures in the graveyard, cards in the graveyard. If you can kind of build this keyword soup of your graveyard where everything has, a multitude of abilities and a nice wide board state, this could get pretty wild. And I like the fact that it doesn't have to be on different creatures. So you can just pile all the counters on one creature and then make Cathril much, much bigger. Pretty cool stuff here. And I'm sure... typically when it's weird because Abzan colors, the black, white, green color combination, typically you have a lot of, tokeny based infinite combos like Guru Gave of Spore or Gave Guru of Spores. This is an interesting one, I think, and it's a little bit more focused on just beating down with Cathril. So I don't know what else you do with a deck like this, which is still good stuff. Very, very cool. Next up, we've got Kelsian the Plague. White, red, black, 2/2, human assassin, mythic rare, vigilance and haste. It's a +1/+1 counter for each experience counter you have, and you can tap it to deal damage to target creature you don't control. When that creature dies this turn, you get an experience counter. So you were pretty high on this one originally. You were looking at this one quite a bit, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Kelsian here?
I'm sorry. Sorry. I honestly think that it will take some tailoring, but I think it has the potential to be a great commander to lead a great deck, honestly.
Yeah. Very Voltron-y, kind of like Sir Gwyn, to put a bunch of equipment on it.
Yeah.
But less so needing the equipment and more of the ability to kill small things.
Yes.
There's a card in your commander deck, or your going deck, Basilisk Collar.
Yep.
Gives it Death Touch and Lifelink, which I think might be the key to making Kelsey really powerful here.
Yep.
So be able to maybe two that up with like a Stoneforge Mystic effect to get that into play, and then just start pinging things down. And I don't know if there's a way to untap creatures in this color combination. Oh no, there is. Reconnaissance is a white enchantment. It's quite old. That could do the trick with Kelsey in here. Cool stuff.
Tricky, but potential.
Yeah, for sure. Next up, we've got Otrimi, the Ever Playful, 3 black, green, blue. For a Nightmare Beast that has Mutate for 1 black, green, blue. Is a 6/6, has Trample. And whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, return target creature card with Mutate from your graveyard to your hand. Again, this is the Derpy Dragon.
This one definitely reminds me of Toothless.
Yes. The only downside with Otrimi is just the limiting factor of the Mutate cards.
Yeah.
That's the only thing holding this thing back. It is, I think, going to be the most fun commander deck out of the box, but you will have the hardest time making it, be really competitive, unfortunately, I think. Just because they've only got one set of Mutate cards. And, unless it comes back in a new set moving forward, your card pool is quite limited here, much like the Morph deck from last year. But, again, restriction breeds creativity. So
You definitely play something like this to just sit back and go, neat.
Yeah,
Like,
how big can I make this stupid thing?
yeah.
And it's also cool because Mutate is not taxed by commander tax. So you can constantly just... Oh, wait. Maybe it does. I'll need to verify that, but I don't think it does. Yeah. But anyway. Paco, Arcane Retriever, 3 green red for a Elemental Hound, 3/3. It partners with Halden, the guy we saw earlier, the blue guy. And when it attacks, you exile a top card of each player's library, then put a fetch counter on each of them, put a +1/+1 counter on Paco for each non-creature card exiled this way. He's a good boy.
He's a very good boy.
Can get quite large. And I think, even without Halden in play, you can just kind of have Paco out. And if you have the ability to protect him somehow with, redirect spells or just, hexproof spells that are, very common in blue, green, and red colors, you can probably do a lot of damage with Paco here. Good boy.
Such a good boy. Bestest good boy.
Bestest good boy.
Don't tell Fritz.
Oh, yeah. Shh. Next up, we've got Shabraz, the Sky Shark, 3 white, blue for a legendary Shark Bird. 3/3 mythic rare. It pairs or partners with Braylon, the Sky Shark Rider, has flying. Whenever you draw a card, you put a +1/+1 counter on the Sky Shark and you gain a life. And you can pay a hybrid white-blue to give target human flying until the end of turn. Again, there's some wacky infinite combo that lets you draw your library, gain infinite life, as long as you have cards in your library, obviously. Makes Shabraz here infinitely large and just beat down with it.
Yep.
This card's cool. I'm excited for this card.
Flying sharks.
Oh, yeah. And next up, we've got Silvar, Devourer of the free, 3 black-red for a 4/2, partners with Trynn, Champion of Freedom. It has menace. Sacrifice a human, put a +1/+1 counter on Silvar, Devourer of the Free. It gains indestructible until end of turn.
Kitty.
Yep, this is the partner commander pair that Sam built for this set. I'm gonna turn. There we go. Yeah, the only downside to Silvar I see here is the fact that you have to sacrifice a human.
Yep.
The only downside to it. Other than that, this card is just wild. And to gain indestructible just makes it that much harder to stop. So I know you're really hyped to build this commander.
So excited, yes.
Yeah. Very cool stuff. Next up, we've got Tayum, the Luminous Enigma, 1 white, black, green for a Nightmare Beast, mythic rare, 3/3. Each other creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional vigilance counter on it. And you can pay 3 to remove 3 counters from among creatures you control. Put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard, and then return a permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is wild.
What is it?
Well, it's a Nightmare Beast, obviously.
I'm liking the nightmares.
Yeah, because they can be whatever they want to be. I don't know what you do with this card. I'm assuming that the trick here is to, on your opponent's instep, basically there's a deck building restriction obviously here to have only things with converted mana cost 3 or less, permanents that have converted mana cost 3 or less, and is to create some sort of infinite mana engine in the tuned version of this deck, I should say, the really powerful version of this deck, because I'm assuming this is powerful here. To create infinite mana, and then basically put your library into your graveyard, except for a couple of cards, obviously, and then put a bunch of 3-cost permanents back into play that do other things.
Yeah.
And then do something from there. I don't know what that is, but you do something from there. This card is really, really cool, though, I think. This is a very powerful commander with a really neat deck-building restriction placed around it. Cool stuff. Next up, we've got a Whale of a Tail. It's Ukima, the Stalking Shadow, 1 blue, black for a Whale Wolf, 2/2 mythic rare, partners with Kuzar, the Ruthless Stalker. It cannot be blocked. And when it leaves the battlefield, you deal X damage to target player, and you gain X life, where X is its power. So, Kazur puts +1/+1 counters on creatures when they deal combat damage. So then the trick here is just to get Ukima off the battlefield. The only downside with this card here, and this is that you can't, obviously, if you pump this thing up with a bunch of +1/+1 counters on it and it leaves the battlefield, it comes back without those counters on it. So this is a really weird card because you're dealing it in increments of 2 effectively. If you have a bunch of spells that flicker Ukima, I don't really know what they're going for here. I guess you attack a bunch of times and then you blink it for the kill shot, I guess.
I'd be interested to see how a deck like this is pulled off.
Yeah, there's definitely a way. There's a bunch of ways that you can, pump up your creatures with equipment and enchantments. But again, you lose those things if it leaves the battlefield, or it leaves the equipment behind, or the enchantment falls into the graveyard.
I think you're onto something with him more so being used as the ultimate kill shot.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. It's cool. It's very, very cool design space. Very, very restrictive, but I think at the same time that does, again, breed some really interesting creative outlets here. So, neat card, and a Whale Wolf. Who'd have thought? Next up we have Xyrus, the Writhing Storm. I think I said that right. 2 green, blue, red for a Snake Leviathan, 3/5. It flies whenever an opponent draws a card except the first one they would draw in each of their draw steps. You create a 1/1 green snake creature token, and when Xyrus, the Writhing Storm deals combat damage to a player, you and that player each draw that many cards. So it's cool that it feeds its own ability.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've not played a commander game where someone isn't just drawing a gazillion cards a turn. So it's kind of interesting that the tokens it's making don't really function with what it's doing when it deals combat damage to draw. I mean, it's cyclical, obviously. As you deal damage, they draw cards, you create snakes, and make your board bigger, which I guess is kind of the point of the deck, which is very... This is really goofy. That's all I have to say.
I'm honestly not the biggest fan of it because, in my experience, anytime someone other than you draws cards, that's bad.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
For you to just be getting a 1/1 green snake, is it worth it?
Yeah. Now, obviously, it's 1 per draw.
Yeah.
But it's just a snake.
Yeah.
When they could be drawing a board wipe. So, I'm not really high on Xyrus here.
Nah.
Not too high. But next we have Yannick, the Scavenging Sentinel, 2 green and a white for a Hyena Beast, mythic rare, 3/3. It partners with Nikara, the one that when you lose a creature with a purple plus with a counter on it, you draw a card and lose a life. It has Vigilance, and when it enters the battlefield, exile another creature you control until Yannick leaves the battlefield. When you do, distribute X +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures, or X is the exiled creature's power. So you play Nekara, play Yannick, and then as that creature leaves, it triggers Nekara's ability to lose life and draw a card.
Yeah.
So there's this symbiosis thing going on here, which is pretty cool. Obviously, you want to have a bunch of things that are very, very large, and also, other creatures to put those counters on as well. So it's nice that it has a little draw engine built into it. But beyond that, it's just sort of a beatdown deck, which is not terribly interesting, but it's still kind of cool, I think.
I feel like the idea of that one with it leaving the battlefield works just a little bit more than the Yukima.
Than Yukima does, yeah. It's definitely a little bit more functional,
yes.
I think. And it is pretty cool that you can do this, especially because, obviously blue has flicker effects, so does white. Things like Ephemerate, Cloud Shift, would blink Yannick from play. So to be able to do this multiple times in a turn to trigger multiple instances of Nekara's card draw effect, plus more counters, this can get pretty cool because, when Yannick leaves the battlefield off a flicker effect, you would trigger Nekara's ability, and that creature comes back into play that Yannick had exiled, does an ECB effect of some sort, and then Nekara comes into play and exiles that creature again. So there is something going on here that could be pretty synergistic here. But I think you're right. I think it is much cooler than Ukima's sort of leave the battlefield, deal damage ability there. So yeah, I think you're onto something there. Next up was our last gold card. It's Zaxara the Exemplary. 1 black, green, blue for a Nightmare Hydra Mythic Rare 2/3 Death Touch. You tap it to add 2 mana of any one color, and whenever you cast a spell with X in its mana cost, you create a 0/0 Hydra creature token and then put X +1/+1 counters onto it. There's already been an infinite mana combo found with this. Freed from the Real is an enchantment that you can pay a blue to untap target creature. So basically, you just tap Zaxara with the Freed from the Real on it, you untap it with some blue mana, and just make infinite mana. It's cool. It's clever, I think. What you do with it from there is kind of up to you. There's no shortage of things to do in Sultai colors with infinite mana. So go crazy. Again, we have this weird creating tokens from both Xyrus and Zaxara, which is pretty cool here. But I don't think that the Hydras this makes is the point. It's the mana generation here. That's going to be the key point there. Out of the box, obviously, there's not going to be a whole lot of ways to abuse this. But, it's still pretty cool stuff here. So there's definitely a couple different ways you can take this deck. You can play, there's plenty of people out there who want to build the Hydra deck. But I imagine more competitive, like-minded people will want to build this to make infinite mana and do something stupid with it. Yeah. So that's it for the multicolored cards. There is only one land to talk about. It's Nesting Grounds. It is a rare land. Nesting Grounds taps add a colorless mana. You can pay 1 to tap it and move a counter from target permanent you control onto another target permanent, and you can only activate this on your turn when you cast a sorcery. And that is all of the commander cards, the new ones at least. I'm excited to see them all kind of come out of the box and see what people do with them. But before we wrap up for the evening, and I do appreciate if you've hung out for this very long video, points to you, we wanted to show you what we would do with some of these decks. And we're going to go to Sam here first with her, I called this the Big Scary Kitty deck. AKA Purrrgatory. Purrrgatory, yeah. So this is a Silvar and Trynn partner commander deck. And basically what you looked for, every creature in this deck, aside from Silvar, is a human.
Yep.
We looked for a bunch of, the newer cards as well. So, the Avenging Hunt Bonder, which gives the double strike. We have General's Enforcer from Ikoria that lets you make human tokens. Jarina, the new commander, is also in here as well. We ran into a little bit of a problem, though, when making this deck. You want to talk about what that was?
You would be surprised at how few cards make
human tokens.
Creature tokens.
Everything makes a white soldier or a white knight or a white ally. Not very many make human tokens.
Or white spirit.
Or a white spirit. It got a little frustrating after a while.
Yeah.
But we did find some cool outlets. So like Castle Ardenvale is here. The Handwear Battlements and Handwear, where is it? The Handwear Militia Captain and Handwear Garrison are all here to kind of do some cool things. Elspeth, Sun's Nemesis, is the only planeswalker that makes human tokens. So it was just sort of like a fun deck building exercise to kind of build this aristocratic build to be able to take advantage of Silvar's ability to sacrifice as many tokens and humans as you needed to make it infinitely large in some cases.
And indestructible.
And indestructible to save itself for some board wipes. And we also put a couple of equipments in here, so like lightning greaves to be able to save it from any sort of spot removal. So it's a pretty cool deck. Very straightforward, very much kind of in her wheelhouse to just beat down with something very, very large. That's a cat.
Don't let the cat's bowl go empty, is the idea behind this.
Yeah,
deck.
Otherwise the cat will kill you. So I went in something that's obviously much more in my wheelhouse with Gavi Nest Warden. I call this the cycling mommy deck because she is the mommy of the nest. I had to dig really, really deep into Magic Past to find all the cards that have cycling on them or have a effect of when you cycle this card, whenever you discard this card, you get an effect. So I went with a bunch of... I went with some really crappy cards to win the game. Obviously Fluctuator has been reprinted in this set to make my cost for cycling cost less. But basically, I turned to a couple of very underwhelming creatures. I'll say. So, Cunning Survivor. Flameblade Adept, Heckma Sentinels, and Quakefoot Cyclops. And Stoic Champion. All sort of play into this mechanic of cycling, because basically what I want to do is get to a point where I can cycle my entire deck for free using the new perspective card from Amonkhet, which lets me pay 0 for cycling cost, and then basically attack with a Stoic Champion that's infinitely large, or a Cunning Survivor that's unblockable and infinitely large, and if I have to, I can use Quakefoot Cyclops to make them unblockable. It's a really rough draft of this so far, but I basically am playing every cycling land as well, and enough ways to shuffle my library back into my deck in case I run out, because I probably will. I had some fun putting this together here. So that is it for this epically long episode of the EOT News Flash. This might get broken up into a couple different parts. Maybe on YouTube, we'll see. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Down in the comments, don't forget to let us know which ones you are excited about playing with. If there's one deck you're really keen to buy, are you planning to use the Face Commander or one of the other partner commanders in the deck? Let us know all that down in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. For Sam, I'm Alex. This is the EOT News Flash. And we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
For more of this.